Well, bonjour, good day, caro, cheers, and hello, MHCP. My name is William Chandler. I am the Community and Operations Manager for the MHCP program. Uh, Hope you all are having a wonderful holiday season. This is going to be our last event for the year. Kind of wild, huh? We wanted to give you all a little something to help you get ready for the influx of new users who will be coming into Meta Horizon Worlds over the holiday. Bunch of new headsets coming online, kids being able to go off from school and enjoy some headset time, etc. And I'm joined today with the legendary Mudang Wrangler herself, the legendary Tracy. Tracy, would you care to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Tracy. I'm a product manager here at Meta. I work on Horizon. I actually work on a team called Core Loop, which is within our economy team. And so I'm really excited to get to talk to you all today.
Tracy, you want to give them a little bit about your experience, your background, your history, your lore?
Sure, yeah, I can give some of that. So some of my background and why I'm especially excited to talk about this is prior to joining Meta, I used to work in games. I used to work at a couple of mobile games startups, another sort of Japanese mobile games company, Gree. And then before that, I actually used to work on console games at EA. And so why I'm so excited about this is like some of my career highlights were just working with like a small team of people and like building games together. And so I'm really excited to talk through, yeah, some of that and what does that look like on Horizon today.
As a heads up, this is more 101 to 102 content for those of you who are new to Meta Horizon and creating content, but also, hey, if you need a refresher, this is some really good stuff before the holiday season to keep in mind if you're developing new worlds, publishing new worlds, or looking to update your existing worlds. Obviously, this is the welcome and housekeeping. We will follow it up with Tracy, who will lead us in the new user experience part of this session, and then we will go over to the live Q&A. Also, this call is under NDA. You signed an NDA when you agreed to our program terms. So obviously, everyone on this call is under NDA. Please don't record, take screenshots, etc., of the presentation or any of the materials. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I need to cover, but I think I've rambled long enough. Tracy, would you care to take it away?
That sounds great. So again, my name is Tracy. Excited to talk through this. Like William mentioned, this will be very like, let's go back to basics as we talk through new user experiences and how to set yourself up for success, especially now that, like, as William again mentioned, we're going to get a lot of new people and a lot of new headsets coming this holiday. So again, going back to basics, the one thing I wanted to start with was starting to break down, like starting with the core loop of your experience. Core loop is like the backbone of any good experience in game. Like every single game you've played probably had a core loop as part of it. And the way that I like essentially break this down as is you do stuff and you get stuff, and the stuff that you get will make doing stuff more fun and exciting as you keep going through that loop again and again. So like let's get into like what are some of these examples of core loop. The very basic core loop that you probably see in a lot of games today is I dispatch enemies, I get points, I use those points to get upgrades, which make dispatching enemies more fun and exciting, or I could dispatch bigger and better, like badder enemies. I wanted to show this example of Battle for Steel City that has like a really strong core loop to it. And it's a core loop that actually has a lot of layers and depth to it as well. So I think the key thing here is like you start with these like actions you can take, but in Battle for Steel City, there's a lot of different types of actions you can take. You can collect stuff for the pawn shop. You can run sort of speed trials through the world. You can join the resistance and start fighting drones as part of your sort of like adventure through that experience. But the key thing is like throughout any of those actions you take, the key reward that you're getting is Z credits. And Z credits becomes then like a consistent resource in the game to then help with your progression. So whether that's like upgrading the weapons you have, whether it's swords or the boosts that you may want to get in the world, that's like a really great example for a core loop in a Horizon world today. I think another thing here to think about is core loops don't necessarily have to just be about games. I think a lot of these are very like game centric examples. And I think a lot of the worlds that I see aren't necessarily like these like traditional game experiences. But if you even think about something like Instagram has a core loop, right? Like as a creator, when I create my content, whether it's posting a story or a photo, I get likes and comments. That may lead to more followers. And now all of a sudden I'm growing a community, which makes me sharing more content on Instagram more fun and rewarding. So you could see how there's like core loops in sort of any of these like experiences today. The other thing that I wanted to like highlight here is, especially for thinking about building core loops for your games and experiences, is you don't need to reinvent the wheel or like reinvent a new core loop per se. You should feel free to like actually anchor in some of these like very traditional, very simple core loops. And then that way, that gives you the room to really just think through like what are the aspects that make it unique, or like where you can be creative about like introducing something new and different. So maybe that's like a new and different action. Like maybe you've figured out some mechanic in VR that's really fun to do. Then how do you just sort of like plug that into a core loop where you do that action, you get something, and then that'll make wanting to do that action again and again. Now, how does this all go into a new user experience? And I think this is what we really wanted to talk about today. And I think the key thing here is like once you have sort of the baseline infrastructure of your game and your experience set up, your new user experience is really that first date between your game and the player. And what that means is like you want to have like your best first impression that you give them this like first session. I think the key thing here is like you want to introduce them now to that core loop. Like, how do you introduce them to the game, get them to the rewarding part of that loop so that it gives them a reason to want to come back? The other key thing here is, again, you only have this one session, the first date, to really like land this experience for people. On VR, you have about 30 minutes to be able to do that. On mobile, it's even shorter. You have about 5 or 10 minutes. So I think there's a lot of things here about how to think about like how do you make that experience like quick, enjoyable, and getting them all the way through. The next part of it, I think we'll talk a little bit about like why clear and like very digestible instructions will be important. Because it's not only like taking them through the experience, but how do you hold their hand sort of every step of the journey? All right, what not to do. I think the key takeaway of like what not to do, you don't want to leave the person looking like the meme to the right. You don't want your player to look like they're confused or have to really think through like what's going on right now. Like one industry secret that we always talk about is that people don't like to read. If you give them way too much upfront, a lot of people will check out and then not come back to your game. It's going to get like very easily ignored. This is like a meta secret that we often do. You know, we have these like, we have to like figure out how to solve problems, like these big complicated spaces. We often ask people like, hey, can you just explain it to me like I'm five? Like, how do you like help people like quickly grok and like ramp up into the game and into the experience? But in a way that's like fun and like really guided along the way. Another like sort of insider thing, as when I was working on games and building this out, in some of these new experiences, you also don't want to overload them with choices and decisions to make. Sometimes that can be overwhelming, especially for a new player. We always talked about like try to keep your choices down to 2 or 3, just to make it really simple to get them sort of acquainted and into the experience. And then once they sort of get more familiar, then that's where you can now like explore some of the depth and how do you expand that out for players. And that's actually a great way to like really make them feel that sense of progression as they go through your game. I pulled this example from Horizon Skilling because I thought recently what's really great about it is that it gives you like progressive instruction as you go into the game. Like it sort of takes like the big tutorial and like give you a sense of like what there is to do here, but it breaks it up into really bite-sized chunks that you get like as you move into the world and as you continue to progress. The other thing that, as an example, that this does really well, it helps create like a consistent marker for what a tutorial or what can give you sort of information to help you along. So they introduce these little turtle guys. And now I know as a user, when I'm in this world, if I get confused or I'm not sure what to do next, I can go to one of these turtle guys and I could figure it out. Because they make that like a very clear symbol of like, hey, I need help or I need an adult. Like, what do I do? I can go to this turtle guy. Again, another key thing for like what to do, just make sure you're getting to the fun of the experience fast. I think I mentioned before, VR, you have about 30 minutes, mobile, you have 5 to 10. They have to like really experience like what is that unique sort of fun aspect to the world within that first session. And again, give them that sense of mastery early. Like give them that feeling like I did it, like awesome, like I want to do that again, and that will ultimately help people and like get people to want to come back. So core loop and IWP. I don't think this was like officially on the agenda, but I mentioned I do work on the economy team. And I think what's so interesting about core loop is like once you have something that's like so strong and like a strong core loop, that's actually the foundation to also monetizing on Horizon. I think the key thing here, time equals money. So as you introduce this like high quality stuff you get, like those rewards that people get and people like them and they feel highly valued, now you can start to introduce this avenue where people now can have a choice of like, oh, do I continue to invest money of like going through this loop multiple times to get the thing that I want? Or can I just invest money? Or like, can I now pay? Can I use my meta credits to now get this thing more directly? So it helps like introduce this new aspect of like monetization to your world as well. What we have seen is top performing IWP will always be connected to the loop or be part of the core gameplay experience. Um, I will mention for some of you that are new, if you started to look at kudos, kudos are basically like a tip jar kind of product that you could drop into your world. It's meant to be like a very like out of the box solution to like introduce monetization into your world. I think some great examples of creators that do this, Immortal in like Water Battling Village or Earth Battling Village, he always introduces kudos as a form of like getting the fans to be able to participate and be able to help sort of show their thanks for the world and the experience. And I do want to flag, while this is like, I absolutely think every creator, if you have an engaging world, you should absolutely start with kudos because that's essentially just money on the table. But as you start thinking further about like how you may want to optimize monetization in your world, this is where those gameplay related integrations will just perform much better. And it's just like a really great opportunity to scale the amount of money you can make on the platform. I think we're
Yeah.
getting into Q&A.
Yeah. So we're finally in the Q&A segment. Okay, from John LeMay, kudos are what now? Maybe we should define kudos just a little bit more.
Yeah, I could define kudos. So kudos are you could think of it as like a tip jar. It is a gizmo that is available for creators, so you could drop them into your world. And what that does is you could basically create a panel where now people can go up to that panel and say, I'll leave 99 cents as a tip, I'll leave 4.99 as a tip, or I'll leave 9.99 as a tip. Then the idea is that then you as the creator get funds from what gets left.
How would you make people want to give kudos?
I think what make kudos valuable, there's a few different things that I've seen in the past. One is, again, you just need to have a really great underlying experience. The more people love your game, the more likely they are to give you a tip. The other aspect of this that I've also seen is people will introduce actually a leaderboard. So it becomes more of like a top fans indicator. So it's like if I am a huge fan of this world, maybe I want to show like I am like a big supporter. I will give more kudos. So leaderboards are another option to continue to grow that.
This is a good one from Shard. So Tracy and I both have lengthy experience at EA where they mastered monetization. Uh, I think this is a good one. Any guidance on what to set IWP prices for to avoid pay to win kinds of feelings versus excessive grinding?
Yeah, no, that's a really good. And I think like pay to win is definitely something like like we do not
Yeah.
want to drive. And I think the key thing for here is like it's all about a balance. I think pay to win feels especially bad in any like PvP kind of experience, because then it's kind of like, okay, well, that's not fair. Like it's because that person paid that they now have like all of the strength to now defeat everybody. So that doesn't feel great. But when it becomes like a social and it's more like a PvE, or like it's like how I can gain like progress or levels, but it's like me against the environment, then I think that's more of an avenue where you can sort of introduce this like pay to progress. Because now it's like instead of doing the excessive grinding to get the thing, now people have this option to continue to actually pay for the things that they want.
Yeah, looking at it like for Battle for Steel City is one of my favorite examples. I could spend 3 or 4 hours grinding out the currency for a new sword or whatever. The swords don't provide any inherent power; they're cosmetics primarily. Um, or the surfboards that in the world, like to help you move around. You don't get those freely, at least the last time that I played it. So I don't mind spending $10 to bypass those 4 hours. I value my time at X amount of dollars per hour. Uh, most rational people do the equation in their head. All right, my time is worth this much. This is how much grinding I would have to do. Do I want to just go on ahead and bypass that? Um, Another great example of two games that I've played recently that I saw pay for power. There was a speed running world where you had to escape. I think it was a spider or something of the sort, and you could pay $100 to get a 4x speed boost. Who the hell would want to pay for that? I mean, I guess if you really love the world, sure, but uh, that doesn't feel good, especially like Tracy said, in a competitive setting. Or there was a shooter game that I was playing where you start out with a pistol traditionally, and you go around the map and you pick up other weapons. Well, you could pay to have the shotgun or the sniper rifle or whatever right off the rip. Again, that doesn't feel too great. So try and limit those experiences in PvP settings.
Yeah, and I think William, you mentioned a great one that's also good is like cosmetics, like
Yeah.
things that like look cool. Because I think those, especially in these like social settings, people do really want those. And it does make the experience more enjoying. Like if you have something that looks cool, maybe I think spin the bottle, some of the guns have like a funny sound, like as you upgrade them, like that makes the experience more fun, even though it doesn't have any like skill or points that are tied to it. So I think those are some examples of things you can offer that make the experience more fun, but don't like break the gameplay or the balance.
A game director at EA I used to know, he had a saying, you want to look like a badass so you can feel like a badass. And that's generally speaking what most players' mindsets are. So yeah, cosmetics, go wild, go nuts.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they need to have value. Why would Tracy pay $5 for a teddy bear in the world that does nothing to enhance the gameplay experience, and does absolutely nothing for her long term? But in terms of, let's say there's a Mudang skin for a gun. I'm so sorry, Tracy. The Mudang is just too cute. But a Mudang skin for a gun, that's enhancing an element that is fundamental to the world and ties into that gameplay loop.
Yeah.
Um, Anyways, moving on. Again, what IWPs work well for a game show? I'm
Ooh,
trying to be like MetaFeud over at my show 100,000 Meta Pyramid, and I have no idea what to do for my game show. Ooh.
not
I'll let
good.
Tracy go first. I've got a couple for you.
Yeah, no, I think this is really interesting. I think the idea here too, game show, same thing. Like, what is the loop of the game show? Like, is it you play the game show and maybe like as you progress, or like I think a lot of these like they give you dollars, like you get money. So it's like if you get that money, then like what can I use that money for? It would be. I think this is where actually cosmetics come into play because like it's a very social environment. You're playing against other people. So things that might make that more fun or funny, maybe it's like a buzzer sound, or like maybe it's like, like what are these like aspects of playing that game show that you can like alter to make that feel a little bit more unique for the player. And then I think what you start to introduce then is like as you have these like game show bucks that like turn into these things, maybe you start looking at how do you explore selling the game show bucks as an avenue because now it's like, oh, I'm a person, I just want the funny quack buzzer sound. Maybe I'll just buy the game show bucks needed to get that sound. So that's like an example of how you can integrate, yeah, into like a game show experience.
Yeah. Also, customizations for the wheel itself. If someone gets a question wrong or you beat a player, maybe there's a fun finisher. My mind goes to Nickelodeon, like the slime that pours down from the ceiling. Various things that you can use as flares to defeat players.
I think you're
Or
aging us, William.
say again?
I think you're aging us as you reference Nickelodeon slime.
Uh, do they still do that? Oh
Is
no.
Nickelodeon still a thing? That's fair.
Uh-oh. Anyway, can you give us guidance on how much players are willing to spend per IWP?
Yeah, our guidance on this is to actually explore different this is like such a non-answer, but like explore a range of price points. Reason for that is because we've actually seen people spend across. So definitely like some of the higher ones that we see are in that like 99 cent range. But we actually see another spike happen at like around the 9.99 range. And then that being said, we've had some creators play at the very high end of like the $100 range, and we've seen sales happen there. So I think the idea is like you want to actually provide that spectrum for players and like have them choose. And I think the other idea of that is that it can now introduce this like comparison. You know, it's kind of like I almost describe it as like when I go to Best Buy. If I was to go to Best Buy and like look at TVs, you start at one, but then you see the slightly bigger one that's like just a little bit more, and you're kind of like, this is kind of better. And then you end up like sort of selling yourself on getting like the bigger item. So I think there's opportunity to do that also within your games and like how you surface IWPs for people.
I think it's also important to note, Tracy, the minnows versus the whales versus the people that never ever spend. I would say at least 90%, if not more, users will never spend a penny on any gaming ever. Um, the examples I think back to are like Destiny 2, Marvel Rivals, Overwatch, etc., where spending money is just, it's a free to play experience. Why would they spend money on it? However, on the other end of the spectrum, you've got people that are minnows and they toss out small amounts of money every here and there to support the developer. That's where community development, wink, wink, hint, hint, is super helpful. And then you also have the whales who will spend buku bucks because they've got disposable income or they really believe in the product. Any insight on hotspots to place IWP items, lobby close to the entrance of the world, etc.?
Actually, I think the ideas that were up there are exactly the right ones to be thinking about. Lobby close to when you like enter the world, or at least wherever they may end up when they get past one of those loops. So it's kind of like if I like Horizon Skilling actually has this concept of almost like a town kind of area. So they don't introduce all of their IWPs up front, but like once you get to the town, like this is where you go, you collect items, you craft them. But since that's where they're like closing the loop, that's like the right time to also introduce IWPs because now it's kind of like that extra little like push, or like let you know like, oh yes, like you need maybe 500 more rocks to do this thing, or you can also purchase a bundle of rocks. So those are some of the, I think, right places to think about where to surface your IWPs. The key thing here is you just want to make sure it's in a place that's intuitive for the player. Like you want to make sure it's not hidden or somewhere that they have to like seek out to find.
And not in a place where there's, if you're in a PvP setting or a PvP world, where there's friction or combat happening. There's nothing
Right.
worse than trying to purchase something and getting blasted. Okay, should you introduce IWP during the first 3 minute period or delay the upsell until they have been in the world for a while or visited multiple times? Does it discourage retention to bring up monetization too early?
So I think one key thing here, it does not discourage retention if you introduce monetization upfront. You'll actually see this in a lot of mobile games too. Like they'll introduce the concept of using a hard currency or a paid currency pretty early, actually, as part of the new user experience to show like what is the value of these like gems that you may get in the game. And so that happens actually pretty early on, and that's not an issue. I think the key thing here though is like you don't want to introduce like a paywall up front. Like you don't want to like get someone like used to the game, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, but you now you have to pay 99 cents to progress or something like that. That's gonna hurt sort of the new user experience. But if it's like a natural part of the gameplay, then it's actually not. There's no bad reason to introduce like IWP and IWP opportunities early in that experience.
Okay, so moving away from IWP, uh, how can we design the world to be flexible for updates or player-driven changes in the future? This is super good.
Oh, that's really interesting. I think one of the things in general, like again, it's great that you're thinking about world updates. We actually see this as a key re-engagement lever for people to come back, letting them know that there are new updates. The other thing here is it's also a key actually like monetization re-engagement. Like for those people, like I think William, you were mentioning that there are whales. You will have like a few of these like huge diehard fans. When you give them this reason to come back, they are likely to spend again when they come back in that like next round. So I think upgrades are really important. It's great to think about how you can upgrade that. I think ways to design the world for this flexibility. I mean, there's like a few different ways to think about it. I think one is like, how can you extend potentially the depth of gameplay? So this was like going back to like, what is your core loop? And then like mention like Battle for Steel City has a lot of depth, actually, if you look at all of the different actions that you could take. So it's like, that's like where they've identified where you can like introduce more updates. Like maybe it's more quests that people can do for those same Z credits that they offer as part of the loop. But it's like trying to like identify like what are those key sort of opportunities for scale to make like you coming back to that experience again, like feel fun and engaging all over again. So whether that's like new quests for things for people to do, or maybe it's like new things you get, like maybe there's a new boost that's available. Or in the example of Spin the Bottle, like maybe they introduce a new set of guns for like the new season. I think those are some different ways to think about how those changes can impact it.
And I would also add some of our legacy MHCP members do this expertly with putting patch notes or future updates very visible in the world. Like there, some user or some creators have, for example, like Battle for Steel City. They're planning to do 4 separate world expansions or something to that effect. And they've had a sign that's like, hey, Zone 2 coming soon, or put a date on it, put patch notes on the wall to show like the change logs and all the things they've added so the users know, okay, this isn't just a one and done world. And hey, this is coming in the future. Uh, you know, I'm just throwing stuff out my ass here, but freeze guns and collecting hippos and whatever. Uh, really beat your user over the head with, hey, if you're really wanting to update your world and show that it's a live service world, quote unquote, let them know that from the get go, right, Tracy?
Yep, right on.
Is it okay for us to give out cash rewards to our players during special events in our worlds? Interesting.
William, I'm going to ask you to take that one. I'm not
Oh
sure what our
no.
policies are for this.
Our policies, generally speaking, I would say discourage it. Um, I wouldn't do it personally, because you run risk of gambling or unfair competition, etc. Actually, I'll put a blanket statement out there. Don't do it. Just don't do it. I don't like the uncertainty. Thank you, Tracy, for putting me on the spot there. I had to put my Anna Boza hat on and reevaluate. Okay, yeah,
Wait,
no.
I think to add though, and this will be like my other plug, if you have a strong core loop though, you'll have rewards that will feel just as good as cash to people. So like if they really like what you're offering, in terms of things that they're getting in the world itself, like the world items, like that should feel as good as cash. So maybe it's like an exclusive one of those things. So right, like you have like a very exclusive Mudang skin that you are offering, for the winner of this event. That would be like an example of something that you can offer in game or in world where you don't have to like fall back into cash, sort of being that avenue.
If you have a somewhat sophisticated game, should you have a quick practice or intro area that hooks them on part of the core mechanic before introducing them to the actual full game?
Absolutely. I think any way that you can like distill it into like the core things that you think people need to learn, but like do that in like a contained, sort of quick and easy way, I think that that's great. You probably see a lot of like console games do this often. Like you always start in like a training arena before you go out into the world. So I think that that's like a very good metaphor for like how to introduce some of this for people. That's to say, like you don't always have to do that. You could also just like introduce those first few areas to be like really simple. Like an example I like to explore is World of Warcraft, huge game, depth, like you get to 40-person raids with giant bosses. But really you started with just fighting 10 rats. Like that was the first quest, was I killed 10 rats in this field. So there's like ways that you could like introduce the game very quick and easy up front, and totally recommend doing that.
Do you have a good example of a time where a certain monetization strategy performed significantly better or worse than you expected?
Yeah. This is starting to feel like interview questions that we sometimes have. Tell me about a time.
Yeah.
I can actually tell you, it's funny. When I worked on mobile games, we were a company, we were a startup. So it was all about figuring out, okay, we build games, it's fun. You want them to be fun. But at the end of the day, it had to make money because we were a business. And so we had to figure out how to monetize. Some of the things we would do is we'd often just look at like what are other games on the market and then try to replicate some of the same mechanics or like things that they were doing. And one example that we did is we built this puzzle game called Early Bird. And you could imagine Angry Birds at the time was the biggest hit ever on mobile. So we were looking at a lot of what like Angry Birds was doing. We had a similar cute little bird. We actually tried to do similar things that they were doing, which was just like pay to like what do they have, like the screaming eagle. So like you had the eagle that would like immediately bypass you to the levels. And we are like, okay, great. Like our puzzle game is awesome. Like we can do that too. The problem was for us, it did not sell at all. And I think the things that we learned from that was because like we didn't have the right balance of like when it was challenging enough for people to feel like they needed that sort of out to actually like cross over into monetizing into that way. Um, so that was like an example of us being like, okay, these sorts of like boosts and things like did not quite work for us. What ended up working for us though was like people loved our puzzles, they loved the art. So what we started to do is just release actually like the next worlds or like a set of puzzles and then like release that as content for people to pay for. So that was like surprising for us because it was different than what we saw in the market, but it actually just worked better for the game that we had at the time. I will say though, like all of those, they tend to have ceilings because what you're then gated on is on the content. Like you have to keep churning out more content to do that thing. That's why I do highly recommend these like game loop, like IWP options where like you get points, but now maybe you could sell some of those points. It's just like a much more scalable solution, and also like an avenue for monetizing at a regular rate.
I'm going to throw this one out there as a great AAA example, and I'm all about ethics and ethical monetization. Some of you might know the free-to-play game Warframe. They had at one point in time, you would have these dog companions, and you could pay to genetically splice, and it was kind of pseudo gambling, where you would genetically splice it to get a different fur pattern, and you couldn't spend earned currency on it. It had to be paid currency. The team woke up one morning to yeah, Kubros. There you go. Yeah. The team woke up one morning to one fella spending I think it was 6 grand or more on just re-rolling and re-rolling and re-rolling, trying to get the genetic pattern he wanted. So they pulled that functionality. And I would say that worked, I suppose, as intended, better than intended. But uh, my point is monetize ethically. Users are very smart when you lock something behind paid currency only, and no avenue to earn it. Yeah, that piss some people off, and they're going to feel it pretty quick. Unless it's super premium, then that's a different story. But Every game out there, Apex Legends with their highest uh, uh, valued rarity, whatever items. Yeah, you have to open 500 loot boxes in order to get that if you want to earn it, but there's an avenue to earn it. How important are thumbnails slash world game titles? So, world thumbnails. We have run an experiment recently with a select number of MHCP creators, and holy hell, yeah, thumbnails, they really do drive users. No one's shocked by that. I mean, I think the game industry, I've seen the budgets for box art eclipses some areas of development for downstream teams, poor UI teams. Um, but anyway, my diatribe aside, uh, yes, thumbnails are incredibly important. Yes, world titles are incredibly important. If you name your world, oh, I don't know, I see you, uh, and it's not what does that tell me about your world? What's the experience going to be? Wait, you're flying on dragons and building swords? How the hell do you get ICUE out of that? So maybe a better name would be Dragon Forge or something like that. And hey, have a dragon in the thumbnail, make it look entertaining. Also, make sure to have text in the thumbnail. Don't have it just be an image, which we've seen a lot recently, I would say.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think same thing. Like when I worked in mobile games, we would actually like A/B test icons because it became like a very clear like, oh, this is like the thing that people will click on to go into the like game or experience. So it's like critical to have like an eye-catching and interesting, I think, like image and title. I think the other thing, and this is also just like me speaking, because what's so exciting about Horizon right now, it feels like these like new mobile days that we experience. And so it's like interesting to see how like all of these things that we went through are like happening again, but like in this new sort of environment. But another thing we did is like I see a lot of people do like these holiday updates, which are great. Like doing these updates are great. And then actually like having that go into like the image where it's just like a slight refresh. Like we would often do this where it's like the holidays. It's like, oh, we'll add like a Santa hat to like our main character in the icon. But that just like adds to like keeping it eye-catching, keeping it fresh, and like getting people to come back.
Yeah, 100%. Uh, Meta Jesus' Spin the Bottle has already been a great success story with that. What would be a great loop for a hangout spot slash bar type of world?
That is a good question. I think this is really interesting because I kind of think of like if I were to like take this back to like what does making like why do I like to go to like a hangout spot or a bar in real life and like why would I keep going back to the same one? And I think there's like some aspect of it which is just like it's like cheers, like where everyone knows your name. Like, is there something where like the more time I spend in this world, it gives me something that makes me feel good about like me spending that time there. So like whether it's like, oh, now when I go to like if there's like mini games or like I have access to more because now people know like this bar knows who I am. Like I've like built up some amount of clout like within this bar to now get access to more things. I think that could be really interesting. Or like as you get access, like yeah, maybe now you can go behind the bar and you can actually like make the drinks. So, like what are these things that can help people? And I would like take back to like what are some of the experiences you've had? I think that that's always like a great sort of analogy to think about is like what makes you feel good about like going back to those same places again and again.
I'm doing a competition world and I want to hold competitions at an interval. I want free ones and also ones with the fee to enter with a prize pool for top three. Can we do this? So right now, 3P events. We announced it today. You all have access to the events gizmo. Woohoo. Uh, you are able to charge a fee for people to enter events in your world. You can set them up. I recommend doing it on desktop to at least set them up and establish them. But in terms of a prize pool, kind of similar to what we already discussed a little bit before about cash prizes, maybe don't do them. But if it's world currency or something. I'm not personally sure if that's a possibility. I'm not techie, I'm community and programmy. So programs not programming. But anyways, it's possible. It's in terms of having a paid experience and a free experience. Um, anything to add there, Tracy?
No, I think that that's right on. Like I've seen worlds that do have like a premium pass kind of experience. So I know it's possible. Unfortunately, I don't know like the full like technical ins and outs of how to set that up, but yeah, I've seen it out there. So I feel like it's possible. If it is not possible though, this is where I guess I'll point out to William or anyone else connected to like let us know on the product side because that's like what we're looking at right now is like what are these different avenues and use cases where people want to set up IWPs to make sure we have the right tooling in place to support you all. So yeah, so again, if it's not possible or like really painful, we'll channel it back to our teams to figure out what we can do to support.
Assets as prizes are okay to do, as in assets the player can use in their own builds as long as they are not pre-released items. Ah, okay. Yeah. Tracy, you want to
Oh,
start it
so
off?
unfortunately, I don't know the full flows for creator assets.
Okay.
Like whether you can release those and then like how do you like grant those? When we talk about when I mention assets or like in-world items, this would be like what a player has access to. So it's like, oh, if I get this like special kind of gun in this thing, it's like, can I unlock a new special kind of gun? But to only use in that world. So unfortunately, I'm not sure how to support the creator side of that.
Yeah. Um, if you're talking about like player persistent variables, PPV, I'm not sure if that's a functionality like, hey, I won this shirt from this competition in this world. Uh, I can wear it over to the other. I'm not sure about the granting process. If you're talking about like assets and giving them to other creators to use in their worlds, like a tri-mesh world, or a primitive world, someone that's not an MHCP, and you're giving them a model that's against program terms to be able to do that. But I'm just trying to uh, somewhat understand what you're saying from a variety of different angles. Do you think that with working with live musicians and events, it would be a good idea for entry to help support artists, given we have the correct agreements and such? Yeah, we
Absolutely.
yeah, it's already a case study. We already do it regularly, I want to say, in Horizon with some of the top performing worlds like Soapstone, uh, where you charge to get in, and I'm sure there's a rev split with the comedians or musicians. I don't know, but yeah, I would imagine. Yes, I think that's a good idea. We don't handle the legal side. All on you, boo. So the three big takeaways. Tracy, take it away.
Yeah, so three big takeaways. One, I will say it again and again, strong core loop foundation to the good gameplay experience. For new users, make sure they're able to complete this first loop in that first session and show them how to do it step by step. Again, VR, you have 30 minutes, mobile, you have like 5, 10, maybe even less. The last one, this strong core loop is going to be that foundation for both retention, re-engagement, but also monetization. So I was actually really happy to see a lot of the questions were about like monetization opportunities because that's what we love to hear. Definitely test IWP on the rewards you offer, things to do that. And again, like channel, like what are these monetization things that you want to unlock in your worlds and like bring that back to our product teams because we want to help you be successful here.
Yeah, I think that just about covers it. So this is it. That was the last session for the year. Thank you all so much for being here. Tracy, thank you so much for leading us in this new player experience and IWP and core loops. We really appreciate you. And on behalf of the MHCP team, by the way, guys, we appreciate each and every last one of you. Thank you for being wonderful partners, creators, the whole nine yards. And I hope you all have a very wonderful holiday season. See you all in 2025.